wheeling! I'm wheeling! Hi everybody! What am I started? What did I turn it on for? Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is one. M13 made a video the other day, and somebody, like, asked me about this. They said, "You really believe in that shit?" And I was like, "What?" And I had to go look it up and see which one it was. And it's about, hard braking. And I'll talk about it because I've had, like, every time somebody brings it up, somebody, like, will come back and ask me, like, "That's a bunch of bullshit, right, Jake?" And, like, I'm, like, not trying to throw this out. I hate to throw this out here like this because you feel like a douche. Like, my opinion is better than yours. But I am a certified motorcycle tech. I have worked in some shops. I have shop experience. So my opinion may be a little bit valid, you know. I just don't want to sound like an asshole. Like, I'm right and you're wrong. But I might be right and you might be wrong. That was a burp. So, wasn't it just behind this truck like an hour ago? No. Okay, so, hard break-in. What's the deal with the hard break-in? Is it really worth a damn, or is that really stupid, you know? Because manufacturers will always tell you, you know, like, take it easy on your machine and don't drive it over X amount of RPMs into the first, you know, however many miles. And no, that's honestly a bunch of bullshit. The hard break-in is a way better break-in. It's totally better, and I'll tell you why. I'll get boring on this one and actually give you some details. You know. Let's go. Okay, so why hard break-in? First of all, what you should understand is what breaking it in actually is. You know, like, a lot of people think breaking it in is like tight parts in the engine. They're too tight, over clearance is a little bit too small, and the actual running of the engine wearing down the metal slightly to make an exact fit. And that's not the case. You know, engines haven't been that way for fucking ever. You know. And there was a time when, yes, there was a type of breaking in. But they're not like that anymore. Now they're built to such extreme tolerances and clearances from the factory that, you know, that's never going to be an issue. I could bore you and explain how you actually measure, you know, the plane bearing gap when you're putting together a crankshaft and all that shit. It would just be boring as hell. Just trust me, you are measuring that gap clearance on a plane bearing. You're measuring it down to, you know, like several thousandths of an inch, and it's very precise how everything is done. There's not going to be any tight spots in there. If there is, then your engine ain't going to run. Especially with plane bearings, it's not like a normal bearing. It's not going to work right if there's clearance issues. So basically, the whole bottom end and the drivetrain really don't need any breaking in. You know, they're built well enough now. There was even to a point, like, used to be some years ago when, you know, you had a new engine, if you ran it hard and broke it incorrectly, almost all your valves would need to be adjusted afterwards. That's not even true anymore. You know, I have bikes come in when I was, like, let's say I was working at Honda, for instance. You always see like sport bikes come in, you know, doing their 15,000 mile tune-up, which would be have a valve adjustment on it, and you almost never had to adjust their valves. Like 15,000 miles, they would still be not within like range, you know. They'd be dead in the center of the range where they should be, just perfect. Every time. I can hardly think of like a few times I've had to actually adjust valves on a inline 4. You know, they're just well built. And in a car, you know, especially like in a car engine where they're hydraulic, it's not going to be an issue ever anyway. So what actually is breaking in when your engine's brand new, the only thing that really needs to set in correctly is the piston rings to the cylinder. Those need to be set in correctly. You can almost think of it like a new set of brakes. When you have new rotors and new pads, you don't have brakes for shit at first. You know, if you know what I'm talking about. That's because the surfaces haven't really matched each other very well. The same thing's going to happen with that piston ring on the cylinder. Of course, the piston ring can spin there, but you know, you've got this piston ring that's moving up and down in the cylinder, and when it's new, it hasn't quite matched that surface yet, you could say. It's going to have some extra blow by when you first run it. That's just where the gases are escaping past it. By running it hard, you basically just you're causing it to the piston ring. Hang on, let me do this light. Some bump in here. The rings, there's usually 2 rings in an oil ring, but some just have a single piston ring now, and they're getting smaller pistons trying to save weight and all that shit. But the ring, when you drive the engine hard, when there's more compression in the cylinder, you know, higher RPM, you know, like that, it's putting the ring, it's putting more pressure in there because you're getting more RPM, you're getting more air and fuel in there, creating a higher compression in the engine. That's going to force the ring out harder. If you drive it pussy, that ring really doesn't have much pressure on it because literally, like when you go like hard on it, it's like when you're just cruising like this, it's something crazy. Like the pressures inside the cylinder increase like nearly 100 times easily when you're on it hard to when you're just cruising like this. And when those pressures are heavy, the rings are forced out, and that's when they're mating a good surface with the cylinder wall. And you want that to happen. You want that to be pressed hard against it when it's new so that it wears in correctly. And especially with new engines now, they almost always have coated cylinders. Coated cylinders are awesome because they last forever. You're probably like, you go forever without having to rebore that cylinder. You could just replace the rings and maybe at one point the piston. Eventually, after lots of use, you can sort of glaze them over a bit. But that's about the worst you can do. You're not gonna fuck up that piston, that cylinder very easily unless you run the engine dry or do something stupid or overheat the shit out of it. You know, it's gonna be hard to fuck that surface up. But because that surface is so slick and so hard, it's hard to break in an engine properly, especially with synthetic oils. They're so slick that I'd actually suggest just using a conventional when breaking an engine in. Most people would teach that as well. If you run it hard like that, you're gonna break it in better. It's gonna get better a better seal between the cylinder and piston. You'll actually end up with more horsepower. But a lot of people will think, well, it may give you more horsepower, but it can't be good for the engine. No, but it is good for the engine. It's very good for the engine. The reason that you're making more power, because it's more tightly sealed, is going to make the engine last much better in the long run. The reason why is, if you pussyfoot it from the beginning, those rings are never going to set in properly. There's a time. You have to do it within the first X amount of miles of that machine. If you don't set them in properly, then they're going to always have blow-by. And if you have blow-by, every time you have a compression and some of that gas gets to escape around of it more than the guy who broke his in, properly, or you know what I'm saying. You're going to end up like, well, here's what happens. Every time it blows by, here's what you're shitting down into your bottom of your engine. You're shooting down, first of all, hot ass air that's going to heat the whole engine up. That blasts the oils on the cylinder walls too. You know, that oil that has to be there to help lube the piston and the cylinder wall gets blasted off when you have blow-by. And that's so now your piston's running back down dry. It's also getting like extra heat down in the bottom of the engine, and also any carbon from the exhaust is also shot down in there, and that carbon contaminates your fuel. And on most motorcycles, you have to run a motorcycle oil that's wet clutch compatible. It's like 99% of the bikes you're gonna have to run that. And those kind of oils, you can't run detergents in your engine that really help protect against that kind of buildup of carbon buildup that you get from blow-by. So then that blow-by contaminates the oil and basically makes your oil turn to shit faster. It's just, let's see here. So basically, there you go. You end up with ruining your oil quickly, you end up, which in turn wears the rest of the engine quicker. Your piston cylinder is going to wear out faster because of that blasting of that blast of blow-by that kills the oil on there. It's many reasons why it's actually bad for your engine more in the long run than it is to actually break it in hard and run it that way. And it really does make power. It's not a lie. I've seen it myself. If you go ask anybody that works at a dyno, they'll back this up too. Anybody that operates a dyno says the guys that run them hard make more power. I saw it myself at school. The guy, our teacher, who knows, fuck, he's got crazy amounts of experience. The school got a brand new Gixxer 600. He took it when it was brand new and put it on the dyno and ran it until it leveled off the power that it was making. It's like it had never been ran. Like it came in the crate, like how they send it to the, like how they send it to a dealer, you know. Pulled it out and ran it. And the thing is, when I say run it hard, let me explain what that means. Here, I'll go down this way. It'll be a sort of a emptier road. When I say run it hard, what I'm talking about is running it through the RPMs. Not just beating the shit out of it. Not like hard clutching it or doing anything crazy. Shouldn't hurt it anyway if it's a decently built bike. What I'm talking about is like rolling on the throttle, going through the RPMs, going through the gears. And then what's really good too is to do lots of heavy downshifting. That'll help. That creates a vacuum, because what happens when you are breaking those rings that rings in, they're going to be flaking off microscopic bits of metal as they wear in properly. And they have two ways they can go. They can go up into the piston where they'll get sucked out of the exhaust, or they can go down into the oil. If you do a lot of heavy downshifting, it causes a vacuum that will pull those bits up into the up out. You know, like here would be a good example. Like first gear right here, and you're gonna kind of just let off. Don't really use the brakes much. Just kind of do some of this. And then just do it again. That kind of shit right there is awesome. That's what the engine loves when it's brand new, to help set those rings in properly. If you keep doing that, you'll be on the right track. The other thing is definitely warm the engine up to full operating temperature. You really want to warm the engine up before you take off on it. And then you're just going to want to change your oil quickly, because like I said, there will be some of those metal bits that make it down into the bottom of the engine. And it's fine. I would just say, like a lot of people say change your oil within 600 miles. Fuck that shit. Let me tell you what I did when I bought my R1. I bought my R1, it was 0 fucking miles on it, like 0.012 or something, where somebody had like rode it around the parking lot to make sure it worked. I fired it up, let it get the full temperature, pulled it out, hit the highway, and I think I did about 150 on the way home. Got home, parked it, then we changed the oil on it the following day. That's like how serious that it can be good for it. Like that's how serious I take that shit. So definitely the hard braking is legit. But yeah, and another thing is too, is a lot of people are real big into that heat cycling stuff. From what I was told from my teachers and from everything else we'd heard about, that the heat cycling is a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't really do anything. They said the reason why is because the engines now are like, if they're cast or they're heat treated, it's such high temperatures that your engine will never hit those temperatures anyway. So if there's any heat treating to be done, it's already been done by the manufacturer, and the building of the engines are well enough now that that's not going to do anything for them, that they don't need that anymore. A lot of people don't like to think that. If it makes you feel better, heat cycle it, but I'd say do it while you're breaking it in. You know, don't do it like let it run and get super hot just sitting there. Idling it while you're breaking an engine is probably really bad for it. But anyway, that's why the hard braking is a good deal. They said, dude, you should do like a fucking yeah, motherfucker. What am I trying to say? That would be the